Show me what you got!
Welcome in to the 5th edition here of To Be Frank. I'm Jake Reiser.
I'm Dan Schulman.
And I'm Jordan Tebow.
And this week, we had a little bit of a break, so we're coming not too far away, but we're at least a week removed from when we normally do this, so we'll do our best. But we had a great seminar just before break. It was about beat reporting, and Zach Cox of NESN and Phil Perry of Comcast Sportsnet, both of whom cover the Patriots, came to talk to us. And I don't know whether the Patriots are an interesting case just because of the way the team is run, but it's just fascinating to hear about the industry itself, how there is no offseason. You're literally cranking out pieces regardless because there's always some sort of news breaking.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, what Zach Cox said, where he wrote 14 to 15 articles during the Super Bowl, I mean, that's a lot, but there's that much news going on in the course of a football game, especially one that was as eventful as this past Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's his day-to-day, you know. That's just what he does. And like you said, Jake, there's no days off, and for Zach and the Patriots, there are a lot of days off. Even during the season, you know, when there's not a game day, there's only one game a week, so you got to find those stories, you got to make those relationships, and you have to build the story out of what you get from the limited time that the Patriots give you. And they went on to say a lot of other teams in the NFL and other leagues really do give you a lot more time with the players and more openness, but with the Patriots, it's a lot harder.
I mean, as far as our own experiences go, we know that there's never an off season. All of us cover the BU men's hockey team. Over the course of the last off season, it was somewhere in August, and I was lying on the back patio of my family's home in Southern Rhode Island, and I had scheduled an interview with Coach Quinn, and so I sat on my back patio and I talked to Coach Quinn, just doing like a 15-minute off-season interview. You just got to find some way to keep people interested throughout the year.
Yeah, and I can even take that even a step further. I cover Borussia Dortmund, German soccer team for SB Nation, and I mean, as you know, both of you at least, soccer really doesn't have an off season. You're talking a European season that runs from August to May. In the German season, the Bundesliga, there is a break in between Christmas and Martin Luther King Day here in the States, roughly in terms of dates. But that's during the height of the transfer window, so there's never really any time off for them. There's always news breaking around the team. Then in the summer, you're covering, you know, a tournament, the World Cup, Confederations Cup, whatever pops up. Yeah. Then when that ends, you have preseason. Plus, you're on top of that, you're looking at transfers, and before you know it, the next season's already rolling up. So, and the same can be said for a lot of sports here in the States. NHL never really ends. The NFL especially never ends. I mean, look at the week the Patriots just had. I mean, the list goes on.
Exactly. I mean, you can talk about any sport, the NHL, where immediately after the Stanley Cup final, you have the draft, and then you have free agency on different days, and that carries over to development camps for rookies, and then captains' practices, and then training camp comes. MLB, right after the World Series, you have maybe a little bit of a break, but you have GM meetings where all the trades go down, and then before you know it, spring training's right here. So regardless of the sport you can pick, there's just never a stoppage.
And the thing is just, I don't want to say fabricating, but, you know, making a story when it's in downtime, when there's not an actual game. You know, it's something that popped in my head when you said the NHL was, you know, Tyler Seguin got traded. I remember it was July 4th. You know, and things just happen. Things happen, and even if they're off the field. And look at the summer the Patriots had a few years ago with Deflategate. You know, they had so much media attention, and there wasn't a game going on for months. So I don't know. I just thought it was really a testament to the way Zach and Phil work. You know, they're always looking to build that story, even if, you know, there wasn't a one-handed touchdown catch or you know, a last-minute touchdown to win the game. You really have to dig and use those contacts and build a story, like you said with Coach Quinn over the summer, or you know, in your experiences covering the European Soccer League. There is no time off.
And like you just said about building a story, you also have to start being an opinion maker, as Professor Shore noted in his blog. Fans watch the games. Fans know what generally happens with the team. You need to start providing your own commentary, and sometimes it backfires, and we've just had our own little experience with it, Dan.
Yeah, I know that during Beanpot Week, when our This Week in College Hockey podcast predicted Harvard to win the Beanpot over Boston University, and as we run through a BU outlet, it was not looked on too favorably upon by the BU hockey community. But, we can't just sit here and talk up a team that we honestly don't feel is going to win. We used analysis and, our own opinions to make other opinions. Obviously, people listened and people heard, and it was clearly causing controversy and whatnot. But, in the end, we were right. So I know Phil Perry talked about a similar incident where he had Brandon Browner pull him aside, and Browner wasn't really pleased with something Phil Perry had written and made that clearly known to him in public in the locker room. It happens, but in the end, we are opinion makers.
And the tough thing about that too is that, sure, we're a BU outlet, and for Zach Cox and Nesson, and you feel for the Red Sox writers and the Bruins writers there, considering the ownership they have, we have to kind of tread lightly because they do read what we see. And so if they're not happy with it, there can be ramifications on our side. As much as we want to be independent journalists who want to have our own opinions regardless of team affiliation.
Yeah, and I think treading lightly means something completely different than promoting. You can't really just say, oh, everything's great, but your team loses 6-1. You can't do that. You have to have that fine line between being overly critical and just having no hope in the team you cover, especially being an outlet affiliated with that team. And you have to draw the line between that and being completely biased.
And it's not like we were overly critical in that thing either. We brought in our analysis, like you said. We did it in a factual and fair way to the team.
Yeah,
and we were right. No, but anyway, and it's funny. Just what I was thinking about is the accumulation of what we've learned over this course. And when we had the play-by-play guys in, they talked a lot about kind of marketing the team because they were part of the team. But the whole time I was kind of thinking with Zach and Phil and how they were talking about treading lightly. That idea it's kind of tough when you think about it. Think about the guys who call the Cleveland Browns games every day, or the guys who are sitting there up in the Colorado Avalanche press box when they have 15, 20 wins fewer than the rest of the NHL. It's got to be tough to walk on eggshells and not say this team flat out stinks. Because most of the time you're wrapped up in the ownership of the league, the ownership of the team, and you can't say stuff like that. And it's tough because you talk to guys like Ian Thompson and Jim McBride and all these guys that Professor Shore has got in to talk to us. And it's tough because you really can't say, this guy flat out stinks. You have to say, oh, this guy was 5 of 13 from the free throw line. This guy, his shot percentage is 20% this year. It's stuff like that. You got to get around it somehow. And It's really tough.
And I know you guys probably weren't listening to this because we were all watching the BU Notre Dame game, but I was told that during the final game of Boston College's regular season for hockey, when they lost to UMass Lowell miserably at Tsongas Arena, the BC play-by-play and color announcers turned against the team and said, the power play is terrible, they're immature, and a lot of not-so-pleasurable remarks about the hockey team. So, in that case, Jordan, I completely agree with what you just said.
Mm-hmm. It's tough on our side because you want to be as fair to a team as possible. And if you are going to criticize a team, regardless of your affiliation, you want to be able to back it up. And that's tough for those BC announcers who, in a moment of frustration for a team that has been on and off, frankly, the last few weeks of the regular season, it's just tough for it to come out like that, especially being on a BC-affiliated network.
Yeah, and there's a difference between broadcasters and reporters. Mm-hmm. Broadcasters, I feel like, are more widely listened to, but now there's so many reporters. There's only a couple of broadcasters. You only have your home radio stream and a television stream for the NFL that could possibly be listened to in Boston. Writers, you have Nesson with Zach Cox, CSN with Phil Perry. Then you have the Globe, the Herald, any newspaper, the SB Nation, any blog, Bleacher Report, Deadspin, anything. There's so many outlets that are writing about the Patriots. It's just, take your pick.
Yeah, and the other thing that I took away from Phil and Zach, I'd asked them about Deflategate and how they covered it and if they were defensive or not. And Phil said he kind of walked around it, and there was just so many articles that it was just he said he started to become it was almost like he was in college again, taking science courses and with PSI and things like that. But it's hard to defend a team as well and not sound like a homer, as you would say. But it's also hard to criticize them. So you really need to find that line. And I feel like that's what I learned from them coming in and talk to us about beat reporting, because, you know, the Patriots are such a critical organization. They're such a cut and dry, media oriented team. They don't take, criticism lightly. So for them to come in and talk to us about that was really helpful.
And so just to close out this episode, I want to ask you guys something. Is beat reporting still the job to strive for? Is that the thing that you guys are looking forward to possibly achieving outside of college?
You know, I know Frank Shore asked a similar question in the seminar, and Phil Perry answered it very well. It's not the goal of every reporter to be on a beat, but it is one of the first goals. So maybe starting out you want to be on a beat. You want to maybe get your feet wet, a lot like what Zach Cox did at Nesson, where an internship led into a beat. Something like that. And covering a beat's a very comprehensive, very time-consuming job, and like we've talked about pretty much this entire time, there is no off-season. But for me personally, I think a beat would not only make me a better writer, but it would allow me to get myself out there a little more.
Yeah, and for me, there's so many more broadcast opportunities, and I'm not saying that beat reporters can't be broadcasters, but there's just so much changing in our landscape of journalism and sports journalism that it doesn't have to be your first overall choice when it comes to job searches. You know, you could do basically anything. You could be a blogger. You could be you could be on a sports talk radio show. You could do any of these things, but it all comes back to beat reporting. Where are you getting your information from? It's those guys who are there every day in the trenches, in the media scrums with their phones, being human mic stands, as Professor Shore once alluded to. But I think beat reporting is one of the more integral positions in sports broadcasting. And I think it'll continue to be because, like I said, that's where you get your information from. That's where you trust your sources, the guys who are actually in the building every day. And a lot of the national guys who cover teams loosely don't get those interviews that guys like Phil and Zach would get.
And I mean, on my end, I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else but being in a media scrum after the game, chatting with the guys, sitting next to a guy in a locker room and learning about him and being able to tell their stories and working on a team throughout the whole season. It's something I've done since I've gotten to BU, that I'm covering men's hockey here, being a Bruins beat reporter. As much as it's on a blog, I still treat it like it's beat reporting. I go in with the mindset that I'm here building relationships with these guys. They know me, and I'm developing relationships that will work for me in my professional career in the future. So at this point, it's just something that I couldn't imagine not doing. It's such a part of who I am as a journalist. I just couldn't think of it any other way. But as far as beat reporting goes, I think that's a wrap for this episode of To Be Frank. But for now, alongside Jordan Tebow and Dan Shulman, I'm Jake Reiser signing off.
I like what you got. Good job.